Hi, Valerie. Can you hear me?
Hi, how are you? That happened quick. Usually there's a delay. It was like I was just there.
Okay, well, yes, we're live, so welcome. I'll just give everybody a quick introduction of who you are, and then we can jump right into the conversation. Um, Today's guest, Valerie Joy Wilson, you may know her better as Trusted Travel Girl. She's a solo travel expert who has discovered how to not just see the sights, but really immerse herself in local culture and be more of a local and not a tourist. She can certainly address how to do that when you travel solo. Her adventures have included some crazy ski runs, some dangerous scuba dives, being in Egypt during the Arab Spring uprisings, and I'm sure much more than that. Those were just the highlights that I know of. And everybody, you can follow her at trustedtravelgirl.com and at Trusted Travel Girl on Instagram. Welcome, Valerie.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. And seeing the comments there,
Absolutely.
as I mentioned earlier, let us know where you're joining from. If you have any questions on solo travel, if you have questions, just travel in general. We'll start off here. Valerie has had experience flying recently in the post-corona era. So if you have any questions on that, throw those in. We'll keep an eye on the questions, comments, and get there. Valerie, on your Instagram page, you posted a bit about your travel and after you even had COVID-19. So first of all, how are you doing? How long ago did you have it, and how was your recovery?
Oh, wow. Okay. So yeah, I did. I got coronavirus really early on in all of this. I think you'll recall there were some events scheduled in Germany for the travel industry,
Yes.
and a bunch of people had like kind of already gotten there, and I was already sick with symptoms like before things even started getting canceled. It was really early on. I'd say like March 6th was like my first symptoms. And it was weird because I thought I was having heart problems or something. I had like this weird like electrical feeling for a couple days, and I went to the cardiologist and they're like, you're fine. And then the next day I lost my taste and smell. And that was prior to anybody knowing that losing your taste and smell was a symptom. And so I went to the doctor and he's like, yeah, you definitely have a virus. And I kind of joked, like, because I didn't want him to think I was crazy because it was so early on. And I
Right.
said, you think I have coronavirus? And I kind of like laughed at it. And he was like, no, your lungs sound great. Otherwise, I'd test you for it. So for me, it was like, ding, ding, ding. He has the test. He has the test. Nobody had the test in the States back then. So a couple days went by and I was up all night, like convinced I had it. And I drove to his office the next morning. I showed up when they opened and I was like, I'm really sorry. And I was like, I don't have an appointment. And they're like, they locked me in like this room. They closed the door. They were afraid of me. And I was like, uh-oh, they think I have it. And they tested me. And of course, it came back positive. It was one of the scariest things I've ever had to go through, especially early on with so many unknowns. I was like one of the first couple thousand people in the United
Right.
States to have it. So that was kind of crazy. But I got through it. I'm okay. I still can't really taste or smell everything. Like I
Oh,
can't
wow.
taste my coffee, which was horrible. But everything else is good. I'd say it took a good 6 weeks to really feel like okay.
Wow.
For the long, like I felt better, and then it kind of felt like I had glue in my lungs. And I was really lucky. Like I didn't have to go to the hospital or
Yeah.
anything like that. But at the end of the day, it was still not something you want to mess with if you can avoid it. So everybody out there, just, stay vigilant and stay smart.
Yes. Stay safe. Wear a mask. All the usual health
Yeah.
precautions. Absolutely. Um, so after you had coronavirus, you had to fly. You had a pressing reason to fly. So can you tell us? And to be clear, you flew safely.
Yes,
If
very
anybody
safely.
looks at your Instagram post, you detail everything. I
I
think there's
looked like a
pictures.
crazy person.
Yeah. You look like a concerned traveler and a conscious traveler.
Thank
Um,
you.
so, you know, um, for people who wouldn't necessarily know, can you just tell us what did you do to show that you didn't have COVID-19, and how would you summarize that flying experience?
So, first of all, the airline wouldn't have ever known that I had it had I not opened my big fat mouth to the agent. So I'm on the phone with them trying to get my flight. They moved, so they moved me up to first class, and then they tried to sit me next to someone. And I was like, oh, no, 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 no. 1A is empty. I need 1A. I was like, I do not want to sit next to anybody. You're promising social distancing. What is this? And this was kind of before the airlines were getting called out for not actually social distancing. This was like, I was trying to fly at the end of April, and it ended up a string of events. I had to wait a little bit, and then I did have to finally come home to see my family. But when that all happened, I was like, look, I already had this. I don't want, like, I'm being super, she's like, wait, what? And I was like, no, I have all the antibodies. Like, I'm the safest person to be on the plane. And she's like, well, now I have to like ping them. And I was like, oh man, what did I do? So I had to get all of these. I had to produce like the information from the health department, which wasn't enough. And then I had to produce like all of this doctor stuff. And I had to carry all these pieces of paper, which thankfully nobody asked for. But they had to like, I kept getting phone calls from the airline saying like, we need this document and we need that document to know that you're safe. And I was like, wow, well, it was good to know that they were taking it seriously. But it was like a headache I gave myself for opening my mouth.
Sure.
But as far as flying and staying safe and all of that stuff goes, if you guys look at my video I made, I look like a complete dork. I got a face shield.
Yeah, almost an astronaut level. I mean, you're approaching astronaut, I think.
I felt like an astronaut. I mean, I looked like a nut because the face shield I was able to find like last minute really quick was like made by an eyeglasses company, so it like attaches to glasses. So I had to pop out like lenses on like these glasses. So I have these dorky glasses on, and then I have an N95 mask. And so basically my process for the day was I ate at like 7 in the morning, and that was it. I ate and drank, and then I got in
nothing on the plane, of course.
Nothing on the plane, and I knew I was taking Blacklane. Obviously, I normally do, but I was like, not taking any chances.
Right.
So, called to see what all of your procedures were, and like was really glad to hear you guys were taking extra precautions, which I'm sure we can get into in a little bit, or now if you want.
No, yeah, anytime. For now, please. It's a riveting story from firsthand of flying in April.
So, and then I got to the airport and did clear, where I can just scan my eyes and didn't have to take my mask off. If you don't have clear, you just pull down your mask really quick at TSA. What was weird was my bags took like 20 minutes to go through the scanner. So I was standing there like stressing out. I was like, oh my God, they're like sitting in the bins with all the germs. And even though I have the antibodies, I still was like not taking any chances. And finally grabbed my stuff, and then I got a bottle of water, and that was it. I like had no plans on eating until I got to Charlotte to change planes. Got there, the lounge was closed, and only maybe 50% of people at best were wearing masks in Charlotte. I flew out of Los Angeles, so LAX people were being a little bit more careful. It was also mandated at LAX that you have to wear a mask. It was not at Charlotte. So I chose like not to eat anything. I quickly like chugged like a couple sips of a Bloody Mary on the plane and like instantly regretted it. I was like, what did I do? And then, when I got home, it was like crazy. A tornado had hit. So that's like a whole nother story, but it was just like one disaster after another the whole day. And just like leaving the airport, like I had Lysol in my bag. I like sanitized my whole body, like after I got out of the plane, before I came home, and the
because
whole thing.
you could have been a carrier to the people you saw, even though you personally were not at risk of contracting it again.
Chances are probably not, but like since we just still don't have all of the information because it is a novel virus, I wasn't taking any chances. Yep. So yeah.
And then I know procedures have evolved somewhat since April, but just in general, what tips would you give, or what would you say to travelers who are looking forward to traveling again about what will be different flying? I mean, you hit on a bunch of things, but I know you're keeping aware of the news that's happening and what airlines are doing. So just how would you say things at a high level, things will be different when we do start traveling more again?
So some airlines are social distancing and blocking middle seats. Some aren't. It's really easy for you to, I won't call anybody out here because this isn't just my channel, but it's easy for you to find that information if you are really concerned and trying to decide which airline to take. Also, you can use you can check the seating chart, and you can use Expert Flyer to see like how full your flight really is. So that's kind of helpful if you're booking a flight within like a week or two. You can usually see if the flight's like maybe potentially empty or completely full. But things that I would just recommend, like normally, my go-to like thing to travel with is noise canceling headphones. That's like so secondary now. What you want to do is you want to make sure you have everything that you need to keep yourself safe, which is like an N95 mask, a face shield. And I know it sounds crazy and you might look a little dorky, but the problem is that people, especially in the US, always think there's always somebody or a couple people that think they're special. So the problem with that is they're the ones that can get you sick. So you really need to make sure that you do everything so that you're in control of the situation, as opposed to relying on other people to do what they're supposed to do. So that's really why I went to extremes. And that can be things like gloves and like making sure you have enough hand sanitizer. And now one of the new rules is you can bring up to, I don't want to get it wrong, but I believe it's one bottle up to 12 ounces of hand sanitizer on the plane with you now. So that's like the one exception to the liquid rule. So you guys can keep that in mind. You don't always have to find like a travel size now.
That's good to know. I wasn't aware of that. And I really like your point about being the one in control and taking control of your own experience, because I think we've all traveled and been somewhere where there's that person who thinks that he or she is special and the rules may not apply. And, especially thinking about elite travelers and people who travel a lot, who just know everything. It's good to know that, to just shift the responsibility, back on us completely.
Right. Absolutely. And I live in LA now, but I'm a New Yorker. So I go by that, like, if you see something, say something. And like, I saw the flight attendant kept coming up to one guy in the first class cabin, like, hey, put your face covering on, put your face covering on. He kept not. I finally got up and was like, dude, you're disrespecting every person on this plane, like, cover up, and like, it's uncomfortable sometimes to tell people, like, excuse me, stay 6 feet away. Like when you do have to go out, like, excuse me, can you respect the boundary? But you know what? I'd rather come off a little bit rude and stay protected and have that travel experience than not be able to travel at all. So my other suggestion is just speak up for yourself when you need to. You can always still be polite.
And even that advice, I think, transitions to our next topic of solo travel in general, because when you travel by yourself, you are the one who is speaking up for you all the time. And so, what would you say are some of the biggest challenge or changes that solo travel will face in the post-COVID-19 era?
Solo travel, I don't think it's going to be going anywhere anytime soon. There's definitely a lot of people that have learned to spend some time with themselves recently. And so maybe feel a little bit more comfortable being alone than they otherwise would have. We've all kind of been stuck at home by ourselves if you're single, like I am. But I also think you're going to see those single supplement fees disappearing on tours to kind of entice people to get back to travel. Cruises, you're going to see that solo cruiser because of cabins. For anybody that doesn't know, cabins are based on double occupancy. So I think you'll see that solo cruiser extra fee disappear, especially with cruises, as they're going to really need to entice people to come back because they've had such a large hurdle when it comes to COVID. But the only thing that I'm going to say is going to be a negative for solo travelers is solo travelers love to go meet other people, right? Like that's why we do what we do. We don't want to go see the people that we already know. We want to go meet new friends and really immerse ourselves in the local culture. And the one barrier to that is people will be a little bit more hesitant to go outside of their groups of people that they know, because you are taking that additional risk. So depending on where you are and what the risk level is in that particular place, it might be a little bit more closed off than you're used to. But I'm not sure if you're aware, because I know you're not in the States right now, but Dr. Fauci, who's pretty much in charge of, keeping
Right.
us updated on everything, he said that he's really confident we're going to have a vaccine by January. So if you're looking to book those solo travels, I think we can be really confident for Q1 of 2021.
Sure.
But
And,
safe travel.
right. And then the caveat being, of course, the vaccine needs to go to the at-risk people first, and it will take some time. But even presuming there is a vaccine, I think that absolutely increase people's confidence to travel, and in solo travel to go beyond, a small group.
Absolutely. But like I said, if you're taking the precautions, if you can get a hold of those N95 masks, if you can brave being dorky in a face shield, whatever it is, you are protected, so you can have that confidence to go out there as long as you're washing your hands and doing all the right things.
Yep. So domestically in the U.S., of course, most travel this summer will have to be domestic. Would you have any concerns recommending people to do a solo road trip or to do a solo journey, even to another state or outside of their home areas where they may not know where the nearest clinic is or the nearest hospital? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, my thoughts on road trips in the States are, you're good to go. I mean, I'm probably going outside of the country in a couple weeks. I'm working on firming up some dates. So obviously I'm very cautious, but I feel comfortable enough to know that, as long as I'm careful, I can take care of myself. As far as road trips, obviously you can social distance really easily. Great places to go for road trips are Oregon, because you can really social distance there. You can rent like a camper van, things like that, and really go get in the great outdoors. So you can get outside of Portland and you can go to the Columbia River Gorge. There's tons of amazing hiking. Bend, Oregon is amazing. But I biked in Bend, Oregon. I think it's an amazing place to bike. And piggybacking on that, I think I read bikes have been, like, the sale of bikes this summer has been up like almost 130%.
Yeah,
So.
in Germany, some of the big bike shops they're struggling to keep up with demand. It's in a country where biking is quite common. Still, so many more people are choosing to bike. Yep.
Absolutely. And Oregon's a great state for biking. Portland has bike lanes everywhere. So you can go to the city and kind of still like be socially distant. The Oregon coast, and then of course like Crater Lake and all those amazing iconic places. Southern California, I live there, so I'm a huge fan of Southern California road trips. I actually just put an article on my website, but one of my favorite places, so you can go to Santa Barbara, do wine tasting. You can do all of that pretty socially distant. And then one of the other great places, one of the most underrated and undervisited national parks, is Channel Islands. So it's between Los Angeles and Santa Barbara. And you can't drive to the Channel Islands, but you can drive to the place where you get the ferry, and that's all outdoors and stuff. So you're pretty safe there, and you can take the ferry over and hike, and you can even camp. So those are some great recommendations for US. And then if you're in the Northeast, upstate New York, where I live, I'm from Saratoga Springs. It's a great town, but just north of us, Lake George, you can rent a boat, you can get out on the lake. There's tons of amazing hiking. There's, I think, like 42 high peaks in the Adirondacks, so enough to keep you busy.
Right. Okay. Really good tips. Personally, I'm planning a trip to where we're going to take a train, I think, to Prague, and then we'll be a few days in Prague, and then since we'll be like the only Americans in Prague since we are
so cool.
in Europe legally, but and then we'll drive around the Czech Republic is the plan. Have you done any road trips in Europe, or anywhere else in the world? So for our viewers who are outside of the U.S., can you recommend driving outside, whether day trips or longer road trips in Europe or elsewhere? Great.
Yeah. So on obviously popular destinations are like Italy, France, Spain, right? So if you're coming from Rome and like maybe driving to Barcelona, there's some great places to stop in France. Aix-en-Provence, Then I'm gonna mess up the name of it. It's Cars. I can never say it. Carcassonne. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Carcassonne?
Carcassonne. Thank you.
Yeah,
I
I
was
know
like,
it
I
from
wrote it down so I
yeah.
wouldn't screw it up, and then I couldn't find it.
I know
Uh,
it from the board game. Sadly, I don't know it because I've
oh,
been there
really?
myself. Yeah.
Okay, so it's this fortified city. It looks like a fairy tale. I mean, it looks like Rapunzel is gonna let down her hair. It's like it looks like that. So that's just a really interesting place. And then Arles, France is a cute little town. Um, that's famous for that's where Van Gogh cut his ear off. He also painted a lot of Arles. But it's definitely really undervisited, so you probably won't run into too many people there. And like I said, if you're going from like, doing the great European road trip or something, those are great ones to add to your list.
Sure. And I'll just really the beautiful architecture.
That's amazing. Actually, just piggybacking on that, another like Rapunzel-y kind of like fairy tale looking area is Tallinn, Estonia. And I'm a huge fan of Estonia because it's one of those places that it's not overrun. Like you can get space there. And speaking of driving, I drove from Tallinn, Estonia to Riga, Latvia. That's a great little drive. Those are some great places you can visit. You can stop in Parnu, Estonia, which is a cute little town on the way to Riga. So if anybody's visiting that region, definitely check out those places as well.
Okay, good to know. And you mentioned that you took Blacklane to and from the airport. So thank you. That's wonderful. We're always happy to hear that.
Love you guys. Love you guys.
So I will say though, just trying to be objective and not too biased. Why, especially in a post-corona, what is the value of taking a chauffeur service, preferably Blacklane, but just of taking a Blacklane over a taxi or a ride-hailing? Why is that important to you?
That's a great question. So, obviously we love what Uber's done and it's made things so accessible for us. So no hate on them, but I get some drivers sometimes that are jerks. And you want to know that you have somebody that is in this time, obviously of course we want it to be treated well and all of those things and have a safe driver. And those things can all be provided by a chauffeur service like Blacklane. But right now, what's most important is that they're not going to be somebody that won't wear their mask or, isn't wiping down. You want to know that they're taking all the precautions. And with Blacklane, the first thing I did was I picked up the phone. I was like, hey, I'm sure you guys are doing stuff. What are you guys doing? And, our drivers are wearing masks. They're wiping everything down. Everything's sanitary. You have the driver open and close the door for you. So you don't really have to touch anything extra that you don't really want to touch. They're wearing masks. So I just felt super comfortable. And I was nervous. It was the first time getting in the car with somebody else since this started. And I was like a little apprehensive. I was like, how am I going to feel when I get in there? I felt fine. I felt so safe. And, I asked the driver, I was like, you wiped everything down, right? He's like, yeah, of course, So he was like happy to do it again if I wanted him to. So it's the little things like that. The devil's always in the details, especially like when it comes to a service-based business. And those are the things that you need those details taken care of in a time of COVID.
Yeah, well, I couldn't have said it better. I will say for people who are watching too that if for some reason you forget a mask, the chauffeur will have one for you because it's absolutely it's essential that the chauffeur and guests are wearing masks. Some other changes, it used to be we would allow 3 people in a sedan, so in a business class or first class ride, but now we say only 2 so that nobody's sitting in the passenger seat next to the chauffeur. And if you're in an SUV or one of the larger vans here in Europe, same thing. Instead of 5 guests, it's now down to 4 so that nobody is sitting in the front seat next to the chauffeur. And this is for the protection of the chauffeur and for guests. So those are a couple of the other changes that we've made to the ride experience.
Yeah, and that's a good call.
Yeah. We had a question earlier from Inkster1 who says, as a black car driver in New York City, what are the best amenities? What's best inside a luxury car? So you can think about this in terms of COVID or just in general. What do you look for when you have a chauffeured ride?
What do I look for?
Yeah, and amenities. He mentioned amenities specifically, but I would even broaden it to say to go beyond that, and what is it that makes the service worthwhile for you?
So when I'm in my own area, I like to be able to like take Los Cienega to the airport and then just say okay, and not where is it, what is it, which way, left, right, they just know the area, which is always really great. But when it comes to like amenities, obviously I just always just want a bottle of water, and it's nice when there's like gum or something like that. But that's really not what's important to me. What's important to me is like, are they courteous? Are they respectful? If I chat, are they friendly? If I don't want to chat, do they leave me alone? Those kinds of things. Sometimes you've been traveling for 40 hours and you just like, please don't talk to me. I'm tired. So just little simple things like picking up on social cues. And that's, again, that's why I use Blacklane over rideshare services.
Right. That's good to know. And so thank you for the question, Inkster1. If anyone else has other questions, by all means, post them. And I will say, speaking of amenities, that we all of our rides now, we do have hand sanitizer in the vehicle. So there will be a way to sanitize your hands every time you get into a Blacklane vehicle. So that's one amenity that I think people would be expecting or should be expecting in a chauffeured car now.
And that's liquid gold. So that's like,
yeah.
You don't have to use if you don't have to use your own and you get to save it for your flight. I mean, that's a huge bonus. It's hard.
Right.
Still, I don't know about in Germany, but here it's still really hard to come by like Lysol and hand sanitizer and things like that.
Yeah, supplies come and go depending on the store, but I think many of the chauffeurs had it anyway. The trickier ones, I think, sometimes can be the small bottles. Some of the bigger bottles where, and sometimes that's often what's in the vehicle. So there's just one big container, and then the chauffeur will squirt it on your hand, so you don't even have to touch anything. You just get the hand sanitizer, and then you are good to go. So, and then do you? You mentioned road trips, some longer trips. I can imagine driving, up the PCH or going upstate New York. For those who don't know, it's not necessarily a short trip. Some of those can be, anything north of Westchester County is upstate. So, one of the things that we're seeing at Blacklane is actually an increase in the distance that people are taking us. Before coronavirus, the average ride was like maybe 32 kilometers, which low 20s miles, and now it's up to 69 kilometers for the average distance. So one of the things we're seeing is that some people are taking us for longer rides in either replacing a short haul flight or replacing, here in Europe, some shorter train or mid-distance train rides. So we do have more people taking us between cities on a longer, some longer rides, much longer than
great idea too,
airport transfer would be.
If you can avoid more people, it's always a good idea.
Yeah, and for solo travel, for one person to do that may not make the most sense, but I think for people traveling 2, 3, or 4, if you would be buying a train ticket or a short haul flight anyway, the time savings, and then to split the cost of a chauffeured ride, for some of these kind of mid to longer chauffeured rides can be advantageous.
Absolutely, yeah. If you ever have a group, it always makes it easier to justify the cost of things like that.
Yeah, and then we're seeing more people do some hourly rides as well. Maybe it's for shopping, as some shopping has reopened, because then you don't have to deal with public transit. You have the same chauffeur the whole time. You can put you can put your bags in the back of the vehicle and go from one place to another. So we've seen some examples of that where people would just prefer to have that kind of private space when they're not shopping.
Absolutely. And again, like another thing with Blacklane is that's the great thing is you can trust them. You can leave your luggage. You can leave your shopping bags or whatever it is in the vehicle and feel more confident than just some random Uber driver.
Sure.
I hate to, hate on Uber, but that was what came to mind. So
No, fair enough. So I think we'll just wrap up. And there's been a lot of bad news, of course, in travel lately, and I think slowly there's a little bit more good news coming. But let's end this on a high note. So, what's some of the best news you've seen about the future of solo travel, whether it's on a technology side or services? What's some good news that we can leave people with today?
Well, I think the good news is that, if solo travel teaches you anything, it teaches you to be your own best company. So I definitely want to put that out there, that I think some of the people that solo travel have fared a little bit better during quarantine, have been able to keep ourselves a little busy because we're used to just spending time with ourselves. But, I think people are, going to be a little bit less afraid to solo travel after this. I think it builds your confidence. It helps you immerse yourself in the destination. It's not going anywhere. Solo travels, it's here to stay. And as far as some of the best news, like I said, you're going to see some discounts. So if you're the type of person that is afraid to take that first solo travel step, I think that you really can look at taking advantage of some of these group trips. They're going to cut the solo travel fee, the single supplement fee, they call it a lot of the time. Again, cruising, I think you're going to see them cut it. Companies like Intrepid and G Adventures, I think that they already have cut the single supplement fee, or they had in the past. So those are great things to look for. I think there's going to be a lot of discounts for travelers in general, but if you're financially like wondering, is it worth the risk for me to get out there and solo travel because I'm not sure I'm going to like it? Do I want to spend the money on it? I think you're going to see a lot of great discounts, and it's going to be a great time to take advantage of that. And then that's just a tip for everybody. I mean, that's where companies like Blacklane do come in handy, and they're like your security blanket for, as a solo female traveler, getting out there is, the first time it can be a little nerve-wracking, because as a woman, we have to protect ourselves a little bit more than men. It's just the way the world is. And so having that security that rather than hailing a cab or not knowing how you're going to get to a place, having it already kind of set up to get to from the airport to your destination, or from one destination to another, it's a safe way to do it and dip your toes in, and then gradually you'll get more comfortable being a little more adventurous.
Great. Well, that's a wonderful tip for all interested in solo travel out there. So hopefully that will be one of the segments that will help get the travel industry restarted once it truly is safe for people to start venturing out more and more.
Absolutely. And if anybody has any questions, feel free to send me a DM. I'm happy to reach out, and I'm happy to respond. I respond to everybody. So
great. And so again, everybody can find Valerie at trustedtravelgirl.com and on Instagram at trustedtravelgirl. This video will go on Instagram TV. So if you joined midway through, you'll be able to see it from the beginning. And we'll put something even up on the Blacklane blog with some of these quotes. So
awesome.
If you want to, if people need to refer to your wisdom, we will we'll put it there. Yes.
Thank you so much. And I know it's evening there, but I hope you have a great night and a great weekend coming up. And thanks for chatting with me.
Yeah. Thanks for joining. And you have a great day. You have the whole day in front of you. So thanks for your time today.
Thanks, everyone. Talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.